It's 3 a.m. September 26, 1983. A bunker outside Moscow. The early warning system blinks red. Not a test. Not a drill. 5 American intercontinental ballistic missiles have just launched. Incoming. The duty officer is a 44-year-old lieutenant colonel named Stanislav Petrov. He has exactly 15 minutes to decide what happens next. If he reports the attack up the chain of command, Soviet nuclear missiles will fly back within half an hour. New York, Washington, London gone. If he stays silent, and he is wrong, Moscow will be ash. He stares at the screen. His finger hovers over the phone. Here is how the world almost ended, and the one man who said no. By the time this video is published, new details about Cold War close calls may have emerged. But this story, one of the most important you've never heard, remained classified for over a decade. Let's go back to the beginning. The year 1983 is perhaps the most dangerous year of the Cold War, even more than the Cuban Missile Crisis. Why? Because 2 months earlier, on September 1st, the Soviet Union shot down a civilian airliner, Korean Airlines Flight 007. All 269 people on board died, including a sitting U.S. congressman. President Ronald Reagan called it a massacre. The Soviet Union said it was a spy plane. Tensions are at their highest since the 1960s. The U.S. has just deployed Pershing II nuclear missiles in West Germany. They can reach Moscow in 6 minutes. The Soviets are paranoid, trigger-happy, and watching the skies like never before. The Soviet early warning system that night is called OKO in Russian. It uses a constellation of satellites in geostationary orbit to detect the heat from U.S. missile launches. It's not perfect. In fact, it's famously flawed. The satellite's infrared sensors sometimes mistake sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds for rocket engines. But the designers have assured the Kremlin, the system is reliable. False alarms are impossible. They are wrong. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov is not supposed to be on duty that night. He is the duty officer for the Early Warning Network's command center, a position he holds only a few times per month. He is exhausted. His shift started at 8 p.m. He is thinking about his wife, his 2 young children, the new apartment they just moved into. Then, at 3 a.m., the alarm shrieks. A siren so loud it seems to split the concrete walls. The giant screen in front of him lights up. Launch. A text message appears. Missile attack. High reliability. Petrov jumps to his feet. His heart is pounding so hard he can hear it in his ears. He has been trained for this. The protocol is drilled into every officer. Step 1. Verify the data. Step 2. Report to higher command. Step 3. Await retaliatory launch orders. But the data is already verified. The system says 1 ICBM has been launched from the United States. Then a second. Then a third. Fourth. Fifth. 5 missiles. All heading toward the Soviet Union. Petrov picks up the phone. He can call General Yuri Votintsev, the commander of the Missile Defense Forces. Votintsev will then call the General Staff. The General Staff will call the Kremlin. Within minutes, the Soviet nuclear arsenal will be armed and ready. But something stops him. Petrov later described the next few seconds as the longest of his life. He asked himself a single question: why only 5 missiles? If the United States is truly launching a first strike, a decapitation attack meant to wipe out Soviet command and control, they would send hundreds of missiles. Not 5. 5 is illogical, unless the system is wrong. Petrov has 15 minutes to decide, because a missile from the US would reach Soviet territory in that time. If he waits too long and the missiles are real, Soviet retaliation becomes impossible. The window is closing. He does not have the authority to override the system, but he does have the authority to not report it, to say nothing and keep watching. That is what he chooses. He tells his subordinates, "This is a false alarm. Do not report. Do not escalate." His colleagues are panicking. One officer yells, "Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, the system is certain. If you are wrong, we will all be shot for treason." Petrov does not move. He stares at the screen. 1 minute passes. 2. 5. Then, nothing. The alarm stops. The screen goes back to normal. The system had, in fact, misinterpreted sunlight reflecting off high clouds over North Dakota as the heat signature of missile engines. A rare alignment of the Earth, the Sun, and the satellite's orbit created a perfect illusion of attack. Petrov had just saved the world, but he wouldn't know that for years. In the immediate aftermath, the Soviet military does not celebrate Petrov's restraint. They interrogate him for days. The system is not supposed to fail. The designers, the generals, the Communist Party, none of them want to admit that their billion-ruble technology is flawed. So they blame the officer. Petrov is praised for his vigilance in one closed-door meeting, then quietly reprimanded. His career is effectively over. He never receives a medal, never gets a promotion. He is reassigned to a less important post. A few years later, he retires early with a small pension and returns to his modest apartment outside Moscow. No one outside a tiny circle of intelligence officers knows what he did. The story only becomes public after the fall of the Soviet Union. In 1998, a German journalist named Udo Ulfkott digs through declassified archives and finds Petrov's report. He tracks down the retired lieutenant colonel in a small Russian town. When the journalist knocks on his door, Petrov is working as a janitor. He is 59 years old. He lives alone. His wife died of cancer. His son is disabled. And he has never told anyone, not even his own family, what happened that night. In the interview, Petrov says, "I was just a soldier doing my job. I was not a hero. I was in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place, depending on how you look at it." He explains his reasoning simply. The Americans are not stupid. If they wanted to start a war, they would not start with 5 missiles. They would start with everything they had. But Petrov's story is not the only time the world nearly ended by mistake. Just 12 years later, in 1995, a similar false alarm almost triggered a full-scale nuclear response. This time, the culprit was a Norwegian scientific rocket. On January 25, 1995, Norwegian and American scientists launch a research rocket called the Black Brant 12. Its mission is to study the Northern Lights. But its flight path looks identical to a U.S. Trident submarine-launched ballistic missile, rising high over the North Pole, then descending toward Russia. Russian radar operators see the launch. Their computers calculate that the rocket will land in Moscow within 10 minutes. The nuclear briefcase, the Chaget, is immediately opened in front of President Boris Yeltsin. Launch codes are prepared. Russia's submarines go to battle stations. Yeltsin has only a few minutes to decide. But Yeltsin, like Petrov, hesitates. He asks his generals, "Are we sure it's a missile?" The radar operators wait for a second stage burn, a sign of a weapon. It never comes. The rocket continues on its scientific path. The alert is canceled. The world came within minutes of a nuclear exchange because of a weather balloon. No, scratch that. Because of a rocket studying the aurora borealis. These near misses are not ancient history. Today, the nuclear early warning systems of the United States and Russia are more advanced, but still subject to human error, software glitches, and false alarms. In fact, between 1977 and 1984, the U.S. early warning system reported over 1,500 false alarms. Some were caused by faulty computer chips, others by a training tape mistakenly loaded into a live system. One was caused by a bear climbing a fence at a radar base. In 1979, a technician in Colorado accidentally loaded a simulation tape of a massive Soviet nuclear strike into a live operational computer. The screens lit up with thousands of incoming warheads. The U.S. National Military Command Center was seconds from launching a retaliatory strike before someone realized the mistake. The technician later said his hand was hovering over the report to the president button. And today, the threats are different. Hackers, not just hardware failures. North Korean missiles, hypersonic weapons that shrink decision windows from minutes to seconds. In 2022, during the height of tensions over Ukraine, the US and Russia both temporarily suspended parts of their nuclear hotline communication. The risk of miscalculation was deemed higher than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Here is where we pause and reflect. Because this is not just a history lesson. The story of Stanislav Petrov asks a hard question. How many times has the world been saved by a single person's doubt? And how many times might it not be? Stanislav Petrov died on May 19, 2017, at the age of 77. He never received a medal from his own country. But in 2013, he was awarded the Dresden Peace Prize in Germany. In his acceptance speech, recorded in his small apartment, he said, "I am not a hero. I am just the man who happened to be sitting in that chair." He never considered himself special. He just remembered his training. Trust your logic, not the machine. The world did not end on September 26, 1983, but it came closer than almost anyone knows. We are still here because one exhausted lieutenant colonel, at 3 a.m., decided to wait. This video was based on declassified Soviet archives, interviews with Stanislav Petrov, and reporting by the Washington Post, The Guardian, and the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists.